Well, hi again. This is a one-off, just as Peter is setting up 3 fancy cameras for a completely different kind of setup for these videos. He's been busy in the background, but I just thought it would be a great opportunity for me to highlight something else that's going on as we film this, which is really a good theme for Lent. Because, of course, as we've said in previous podcasts, Jesus was tempted with 3 different situations at the end of his 40 days in the wilderness. And the devil was really at work. And it's very easy in church life to talk about the devil and to talk about evil, but to not put it in the context that actually we are in a battle. And I want to highlight, in a way, something that's happened this week for me that echoes what other people will feel without overplaying the sense of darkness in the world. We know the world's a bit of a mess. But we also know, if we're believers and if we trust in God, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's the light of the world, Jesus. But it's still important to mention these times when it really feels a struggle and when there feels like there's a sense of oppression. And this week I've actually been working on trying to get myself organised and listening to God around all the resources that I have, clearing some out and using new ones and putting things together. And I was doing really well. And then one of the days this week that's already gone, I got distracted. I spent a good part of the day faffing around trying to get a medicine from pharmacists where it was difficult to get it because often they haven't got things in stock. And it just felt like I was in a struggle when I should be doing other things. And then yesterday, a really productive day, and then at about 4 o'clock, I suddenly noticed that something was damp underneath a cupboard. And lo and behold, what you might be able to see behind me is a kind of a mark just here that is water running down the wall. And I had a roof leak, and I've got to get that fixed next week. But it meant that because a load of things got wet, the carpet on the floor was a bit wet, some of the paperwork that I was needing to go through was on the floor in a box, and I've had to completely sort it out. And as a consequence, as we come to film some things today, Peter and I, we've had to rejig furniture, move things around. It's been complete chaos. And it's felt like a bit of a struggle. And yet at the same time that maybe there is an outcome from this, that I will get some things done in a way I didn't anticipate if I just rest in God and trust him that he is in the situation. But we must be aware that things sometimes are a battle. And so I just want to share with you the famous verse from Ephesians 6, which says this: "Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armour of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." And then it goes on to talk about the armour you need to put on, which is really for another time. But the whole point is to highlight that these things are real. We don't want to overplay them, because sometimes we can read them into situations where they're not there. And that could be the case for me this week. But I'm just conscious that as I look at this leak and all this water that's been pouring down the wall, that it stopped me from doing things that I thought maybe I should do. But in hindsight now, as I'm looking at it, and I've got paperwork strewn around me here, some of it damp that I'm having to dry out and then decide whether I want to keep, we just have to be aware that sometimes it feels like a battle. And that's what Jesus was in. At the end of his wilderness time, there was a big battle going on. He stood against the devil, and then he went off into his 3 years of ministry that we know are so profound. So I leave you with that thought today in amongst these river thoughts for Lent.